episode 186 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast, recorded December 4th, 2022. My name is Ian. I'm an introvert, forced onto the podcast by a sense of impending doom, and I don't have a sandwich board to ring a bell with and say the end is near, so here I am.
And I'm Alan. Yes, I'm not Ian. Shocking, I know. I'm a safety trainer, first responder, security expert, overall safety nerd, and I've been drinking steadily since about 4 o'clock.
My name's Pierre. I'm a tactical beard owner, base t-shirt merchant, government hater, and the occasional part-time prepper.
If you want to help support the show and keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air, buy some swag. We have the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and super wicked awesome tactical Velcro patch at www.prepperpodcast.ca. All proceeds can help keep the lights on and the backup generator fueled.
If you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes and like us on Facebook and submit a review on iTunes. Also, we want your feedback, good, bad, or if there's just a topic you want us to cover, email us at feedback@canadianprepper.ca.
Well, we have some surprisingly good government issue content for you this episode. We're going to start off with some recent news, update the personal preps, then we'll get on to talk about dissecting a government grab-and-go pamphlet. It's news time.
Well, in that vein, here's a link, and I found this was actually a poll that I found by accident. But essentially, it says that Ottawa is debating whether or not the federal government will support and provide disaster relief funds if your home is built on a floodplain. Therefore, if you live in such an area, expect to be on your own. Once again, shows you can't rely on the government.
By the same token, though, if you live in a place like Tornado Alley or a floodplain, a place like High River, what's aptly named, I mean, you shouldn't be overly surprised when disaster strikes, I guess.
I vote we should just give the government like one more year to figure this out. Like, they're obviously there to help us.
Or pay more tax. I mean, more tax can't hurt, right? You know, because
it's true.
They can make the weather gooder if we pay more tax, right?
Yeah. What's an extra $100 a week?
I think it's safe to say they don't have a revenue problem, they have a spending problem. But anyways, that's for the other podcast.
Yeah. Oh, good. 4 minutes in, we've already derailed.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
I'm going to steal Jeff's story here. So he mentions that close to home for me, a half-hour commute in Vancouver becomes an 8-hour ride. And it's a news article from thedailyhive.com. And yeah, it regales the tale of a lady who had absolutely nothing in her car. She was volunteering downtown Vancouver, tried to drive to Surrey, and spent 8 hours in her car in a snowstorm with no food, no blanket, no water, no potty materials. And she was actually debating walking home. I don't think she was dressed appropriately either. And yeah, so it was a mess for her and everybody else, including myself. But,
and because it was Vancouver, it was probably actually 7 degrees and the snow all melted before anything actually happened.
Surprisingly, it is still here. Like even where I am right now, it's like still sticking around. So yeah, I got actually caught up in that same storm, and I was in Vancouver at the time. And so funny story, I hop on a bus to get to my daughter's place, and the bus driver made it 10 feet past the SkyTrain stop where I got off, and said, "I'm not driving. I don't know what to do." He's new to town, I'll give him that, so it's not a crime to be new, but. He just didn't know how to drive in the conditions, so he actually physically stopped the bus, told everybody to get off. So I think Better Andrew had a good laugh about it with the other podcast chat. But so there I am in dress clothes with no appropriate footwear or anything else either, except for in my suitcase. But I didn't want to change in the middle of the street in the snowstorm, so I ended up tromping about 3 kilometers or something like that, carrying a suitcase and a backpack through the snow, and I was less than thrilled by the time I got to the place, but. What are you going to do, right?
Did it go towards your weekly rock?
Well, that's what I asked. And he says, "Do you really want me to post that shitty performance?" I was like, "No, not really." So there's like 45 minutes in the snow. And like I was trying to drag the rolly bag originally, but there was just like a really efficient snow collector. So then I just having to carry the suitcase, and it was just a mess. So it was, it shows you how much you rely on public transit when you don't have a vehicle handy, right?
Yeah. Just so long, another $100 a week, buddy, and we'll get that solved.
Yeah, no, I know. What I should have done though is actually before I even hopped to the SkyTrain, I should have changed into my winter gear they would have had less of a crappy time, and I would have been less angry by the time I showed up at my daughter's place. But anyway, yeah. News I had: Bill C-21. I don't know if anybody's been hiding under a rock, but
Nope. Let's not go there.
Yeah.
No.
So
I'm
yay.
too angry and inebriated to talk about that.
Yeah, more bans, yay, and and not even any parliamentary debate. The debate was already over. Then they introduced the amendment. So thanks for that. That's good governance.
Yep.
And so yeah, I can't wait to see what they ban next because it'll probably be like everything. So
Biggest lie ever told. I'm from the government. I'm here to help you.
I think the biggest lie was that videotape of our fearless leader saying he was never going to ban guns too, and look what happened. So
Oh, I thought you were talking about the one where he was filming.
filming Idris? No, what?
Yeah,
Sorry, what did you say?
that's
Ooh.
where I was going with that. All right.
Derailed again. Look at that. So what we
Every,
done
every
lately
time
for
we derail the
preps?
conversation, I'm taking a drink, by the way.
Yeah. So what we've done lately for preps is brought to you by nobody right now. So for myself, I didn't really do a whole lot. I've been working and retraining on the with on the job training still. So I did actually set up my little ham radio base station since I relocated from the old office to the new office. So I tested that out, and I was still able to pick up the repeater that's across the street. So that's good. And let's see here. I did today actually meet up with local listeners, so that was kind of cool. And he's a really neat guy. So yeah, I hope to see more of him. And yeah, that was kind of cool. Just to kind of try to expand that mag. That's pretty much it for me, though.
Well, that's okay. I'll make up for you. I ordered some equipment to complete my home gym, which also used up the wellness credit my company gives me every year, which is also pretty cool, I think. So I ordered myself a new power rack, and that's replacing the one that I built out of scrap 2x6 lumber from building my garage last year, and a bracket to attach my battle ropes, which are actually hoses. I took part in a SAR exercise last night. Got some navigation practice in using GPS, using CalTopo, SAR-Topo, some map and compass work, and all done at night in slightly unfamiliar territory, which is very cool. I acquired a second generator, which I can use as a backup to my home generator, and added some fuel to the reserves. Also ordered some new waterproof boots because there's never enough good quality footwear.
Yeah, talking about blurring the lines between you and I, man. Like you're starting to take over the preps thing too. Well,
you and I are the same person, aren't we?
Yeah,
At least that's
pretty
the running theory.
I have a question. What are battle ropes?
So it's basically it's a really heavy thing that you throw around as part of a workout. Really good for the shoulders, triceps, biceps. Good core work.
Is that kind of like when they have that Thor, Love and Thunder trailer? They had him like tossing the chains up and down type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Same concept. Yeah.
I gotcha.
But
Okay.
I can get you 250-pound tracks you can flip around like that's even worse than a truck.
Yeah.
Like a tractor tire.
Well, I've got a tractor tire. Once I master that, maybe I'll take you up on it.
Do you have a matching killdozer that would go with it by any chance?
Not that I'm willing to talk about in public.
Oh, okay.
I have
Anyway.
no recollection of the event in question.
Actually, speaking of ordering stuff, I did order these hand cranks that, like, for the last 6 weeks we've been talking about for the USB charging. Not a single one has worked yet, and so I'm getting kind of angry. I put in a pay claim.
Did you try cranking it?
Oh, I knew it! Damn it! Yeah, actually.
Did you insert the crank first and then turn?
Ready for this? Nothing. And so,
That
yeah.
doesn't sound right.
Yeah, you even try and put a return in with AliExpress. They're like, prove that it doesn't work. How do I prove that something doesn't work? Okay, with a
Can't prove
picture.
negative.
Yeah, so I was like, thanks, guys.
Did you send a little clip it of like you cranking it and your phone not charging? Like, but you need another phone to. Yeah, it's messed up. I don't know.
So anyway, yeah, this has been a dead week for me. So, Pierre?
I did a little bit of fuel rotation, water rotation, as well as it was that time where I had to clean up those Berkey filters from all that grum from municipal city water. So scrub them all down so it doesn't take 6 hours to get 6 gallons of water. Daughter's been sick for the last few days, so we've all pretty much been homebound. So we've kind of gotten some more like cleaning and sorting through the house and tidying up of saying like we haven't seen this in 3 years, do we really need to keep it? So kind of, hopefully making more room for preps, food, and everything. A little bit of food stock up because we had a bad storm supposedly coming through the other day, so stocked up on a little bit of extra stuff, but didn't need to use it, thankfully, which just means it adds to a list that I won't have to buy later on.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess main topic time. For the listeners on the chat, I threw in a link to the PDF file we're about to talk about. So if you take a look at the top of the commentary, you can see something from ready.alaska.gov. It's a PDF file. And surprisingly, like I said, Darius sent it to us originally for a show topic idea.
Yeah.
And it was pretty awesome. Like, I was surprised. For the sake of 4 pages, if you're brand new to prepping, it is, fairly comprehensive.
Yeah. It's a great start.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess the goal with this thing is to do a 7-day kit. Now, actually, one thing I really liked about it is the fact that they give you 12 weeks to assemble a 7-day kit, which is, for people that either budgetary tight or just have motivational issues or whatever, it's pretty hard not to be able to follow this one, right?
Yeah. And I mean, unless disaster is right around the corner, you could eat. Well, I mean, the collapse is coming, don't get me wrong. But I mean, you could easily stretch this out into a way more than 12-week process. Like, some
Or you
people
could just
only
do it in 12-week cycles and be prepared for a month really quickly.
Yeah, but either that or, I mean, some people may not be able to get anything on here until like their extra or a paycheck. So even if you turn this into a 24-week process, right? So just go with your paychecks.
Yeah.
Right? Unless the collapse is right around the corner, which, I mean, at that point, there's other means of getting everything on this list that we won't talk about while recording. But
that's true. Or at least they're not plausible deniability, which means we'd all have to be drinking, so that's just no good.
I'd like to point out before we go any further that there are as many panelists in the chat as there are on the air right now.
Yeah, I was going to make a comment on that. Like, I noticed that at least 2 of them, one of them who also ordered these things is not on the show right now. So
Scott.
Scott. This is a mini gasifier, Scott. You should come on. You should really.
I was just about to say, I was like, I'm surprised Gasifier is not on this list. He'd be up here for it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this little plan here, the government suggests a stocking up so you have a 7-day supply, but I'd say if the government tells you that you should be preparing for a 7-day outage, I'd prep for what? A minimum of 30? I don't think the government can, well, they can't even buy back firearms over the course of 3 years, so I'd give them at least 30 days to get organized.
Can we strike buy back from our vocabulary? They never owned them in the first place. It is not a buyback.
That's true.
It is
forced confiscation.
Forced confiscation.
This is a
compensation.
Conversation for a different podcast.
Yeah, optional monetary.
We are not going on this rant right now. No.
Hey, did I mention there was no provision for monetary compensation in Bill C-21?
Just so on week 1, what you want to purchase is
sharp things and things you can throw.
Yes. Okay, so I think the goal with this was they tried to keep it simple to get more people likely to buy into the full idea of preparedness without coming off as like the sandwich board type. So
out of just to say a small little thing, not about anything I don't want to go on a rant on, but like, so Alaska is putting this out. Like, if California put this out, I'd be a little more worried about like what the future plans are. But I mean, we are talking Alaska.
California would put this out about 6 days before the meteorite strikes.
After? You said after.
Yeah, maybe even as it's striking Earth, they put out something. Hey guys, maybe we should do something about this.
Yeah. So I mean, right? So I mean, yes, it's a actually fairly good government document that I'm like anybody should kind of look into. Like, I'm not entirely shocked that out of all states and provinces that Alaska has put this out on government website saying you should consider this, because it's not a highly populated area. There are a lot of remote locations, right? Like, if Toronto put this out saying, hey, you got 12 weeks to get all this stuff, I will not say on the air what I do for my preps for that. But you know, but that specific state in this situation, right? Like Yukon, Northwest Territories, Nunavut, you know, not entirely shocking that they would have something along these lines way more than where 90% of the population in Canada live in a very populated area where, as much as we don't want to say that the government is there to help, but like, you know, resources are a lot easier to find, right? Like if you live in downtown Toronto, unless you're into like eating people, like hunting is not an option for food. Whether that, you know, and I'm not saying that's not a possibility. I mean, I don't own it, but you know, like if you live on the back 40 where there's 300 acres.
Somebody sent me something. Was it within our group chat earlier today about how vegans are the closest thing we have to?
That was me. That was me a little bit ago.
Okay, so I'm glad we got some consistency in our cannibalism, and we know what Pierre's all about.
Yeah, no, but
and just for the record,
so,
I did do a quick Google. State of California actually does have what is this, about a 20-page guide, which
for
is
a one-day thing.
No, it's general emergency preparedness, but one of them, like the first step is dial 211 on any phone and find a public shelter and take nothing but small bills and a medication list with you.
I'm surprised they mentioned Tofurky or Xanax at some point, but anyway.
Or like
it has the idea of, it introduces the concept of like a stay and play box, as well as a grab and go bag.
Right, but and I mean we're way past that point where I'm like, this kit is more of like the time where it's like out where I live, I'm like, the community building is not done being built because they tore the old really, really small one down and they're building like a mediocre one now. As long as the funds keep coming from the sign that when you come into town, right? Like,
yep.
So out where I live, right? Like, I don't live anywhere remote. Like, you know, 90% of the population of Alaska were this, or maybe not 90, but I'd say 20, 30, 40% of the population.
Well, in Alaska is remote to everything. So,
right. But I mean, you know, having something like this, I mean, everybody should have this. I mean, I would go way further if I lived in Alaska than this
absolutely
basic government thing. But I'm like, no matter where you live, I'm like, you should strongly consider anything on this list. Follow it. If it takes you a year, it takes you a year. I'm not saying this is a 12-week challenge where if you can't do it in 12 weeks, you should give up. But if you need to spread it out over, you know, instead of week 1, it's month 1. It's better than anybody or 90% of the population. I can almost guarantee you.
Well, I was also happy they had the self-awareness too that, like, even though probably 90% of the streams in Alaska are probably relatively safe to drink compared to like Toronto or something, but the self-awareness to mention water purification right at the top of the header and kind of go a little bit into it before they even started about the list. And surprisingly, saving documents was one of the first things they mentioned, which was like, so again, not just for end of times, but just for everyday emergencies. And also, you know, the store what you eat, like, and to do an inventory, because, you know, there's no sense storing, you know, 10 pounds of like radishes if you don't like radishes, and so on, and keeping track of what's oldest and everything else. So a lot of self-awareness going on with the list, which is really good.
Absolutely. Yep. I think it's I think this is a great jumping off point, right? And I think if you were to follow the 12-week plan here, whether you do it in 4 weeks, 12 weeks, 20 weeks, I think it would make you aware of where the gaps are in your preparation, and would give you a starting point to go, you know, now that I've got this, I should probably add that.
Mm-hmm. Actually, Dave brings up a really good point here. It says, prepare for a week, like the 2 weeks COVID was going to last if we flatten the curve. So just like we mentioned before the show, if you take the person of average intelligence and then you realize that half the population is dumber than that, I don't think they want to panic people. So if they said, guys, you need to hunker down and prepare for a year's worth of shit coming down the road, most people would panic, and they don't want that. And they also want to come off as like and inflammatory histrionics and everything else. So I think they're just trying to kind of stick the tip in, see how it feels on the preparedness thing, and kind of get people introduced to it. You know what I mean? Sorry, dip the toe in the pool. Is that better?
It's a much better analogy.
But so let's say the government told you like, hey, you're shit out of luck. You need to like bunker down for a year. Could you imagine the toilet paper craze that would cause?
Toilet paper would be the least of our problems.
But talk about the 2-week thing, right? Like as soon as COVID became a thing, like you mentioned, like stampede and like fights over toilet paper, and that was just the beginning, and that kind of died an early death after about a week, and people was like, oh yeah, that was crazy, we'll never do that again. And then all sorts of other silliness happened. But here we are. But I mean, like, I would bet even money that the minute they actually said that we really think you should prepare for a month, they'd be like, most people would be like, why are you saying that? Like, what do you know that we don't? And yeah, it would just go downhill fast. So I think they're actually being fairly sensible.
If you do simple math at that point, so COVID, I mean, we're almost 2 years or 3 years, 2 or 3.
Pushing
well, we've passed the 3rd anniversary.
Yeah. So we're okay. Let's just go declare pandemic in Canada. We're almost coming up to a 3rd. So if that was a 2-week prep for 2 weeks, and we're almost at 3 years, and they said plan for a month, so we're talking like 6-7 years.
Well, that would be a multiple of 4, so then we'd be up to like almost 12 years.
Yeah, I mean,
sure.
I mean, you can raise a kid that amount of time.
One of the things I like about this document is it says, like under food storage, it says decide how you're going to prepare your food during a power outage. Store your food in 3-meal 1-day units, right? So I can grab that one thing and open that one thing, and that's a day's worth of food, as opposed to having open containers in places where I can't refrigerate them. This one, I'm expecting this thing to last me for 3 weeks, but it goes bad in 2 days. Now I'm SOL. So I think that's a really good. I really like that tip. I think it makes really good sense.
Yeah.
Buy stuff that you like that your family will eat. If you don't eat it, don't buy it. Like that's just I think we've been preaching that for 2 years, 2.5 years, and more in the podcast. But it's refreshing to see that in something that's widely distributed.
I will even go on a little, well, not even side thing, but like pre-COVID, right before we knew COVID was going bad, right? We had some extra funds come in, and we were like, okay, let's go get stuff, right? Hey, applesauce, cans, like everything. And here we are looking at, I won't say everything, but I would say, 30 to 40% of what we bought. And I'm like, well, that was fucking pointless.
We don't eat this.
So, yeah, like, hey, I mean, so part of it is my daughter was like, hey, do you like applesauce? Yeah. And then like a week later, like, I don't like applesauce. So it's like, well, then nobody else does. Right. Yeah. But, but also like a bunch of stuff that we were like, hey, we would anticipate actually picking this up or eating it or whatever. And it's like 2 years later, like, or a year later or 6 months later, just be like, even though it was only like, the cheap stuff, whatever, it's just like, there's $7, that would have been good for a long time, but that has gone to waste. So it's like you do that $7 or even the $2 here, there, or whatever. At the end of the year, that could be an abundance of supplies that you will actually use. So, I mean, even though, I haven't been on the podcast for that long, but I mean, I grew up where like my mom has a pantry downstairs. Like, I think it's only been maybe a year that my mom stopped buying me food, even though like all 5 kids, well, 4 of the kids don't live at home. Like mom was like, oh, this is on sale here. And like, I would leave with like a trunk full of food. Like we always grew up with like, what's on sale? What does everybody eat? Was always purchased. And I mean, we even ended up doing that, like, hey, it's a good price. Like someone will eat it. And then come to the realization, nobody's eating this. that was a win.
It's
But
it's more difficult
could
when
also
you have a smaller family too, right? Like when you've got,
Yeah.
I'm guessing you had, if you're saying you had five, you had four siblings, there were five kids in the
Yeah.
house, and you've
We
got
were
a couple of
7.
parents, and you've got there might be aunts and uncles that come by on a regular basis. Then you've probably got a more diverse palette overall, and whatever's on sale, somebody's going to eat it. But when
So
it's
we also
three of you,
I
or
also
four,
grew up. I also grew up in the house where it was like, this is what's for supper. If you don't want supper, you're going hungry.
Oh yeah, there's take it, leave it, or make a reservation.
Yeah,
somewhere else.
exactly. Yeah.
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 Darius actually points out, who should be on the show, but he's not, the amount of people who buy MREs and having never eaten an MRE, which is true. Like you could say, stack 6 cases of MREs, but if you hate them, turns out, and
So,
Hubert sees that
I
way.
think we've talked about this before, right? Like MREs do not taste good.
Yeah.
Like they're not good. They're some
They're
of them
not
are
good for you,
palatable,
really.
but and yeah, item 2 is like most people can survive 2 or 3 days on them and they're okay, but beyond that, like things start impacting and compacting, and life is not pleasant.
So there's a bunch of stuff added to MREs. So I've always learned them as IMPs. So
Yeah.
when I did cadets, when I was a kid, right, individual meal packages.
individual
They
meal
were
packet,
literally
meal ready to eat, same concept, different labeling. Yep.
different country.
So pretty much one's American, one's Canadian type thing, right? So everybody obviously just follows the states. But like, I did week exercises in the field where it was like, here's your bag this big for breakfast, lunch, and supper, and it's like whatever was in it. Like you traded with everything, and then blah blah blah. But it was also like when I ate those for a weekend. They're literally designed to not make you go to the bathroom as often as your natural cycle for the sit
one,
down
that keeps you
part.
full longer, and 2, operationally, that's more advantageous.
Absolutely. Like I don't want to be hugging a
Collar-
tree, 4
Collar
times
your
a
pants
day.
down.
Yeah, you don't want to be calling your pants
exactly,
down, yeah.
right? So I mean, so if you want to do a month of that, like, okay, it keeps you fuller and everything, but I'm like, if you're gonna do it for a very extended period of time, I'm sure that would have other medical effects and everything. But I'm like, yeah, I mean, just throw a crap load of salt and pepper, and I'm like, probably make it taste pretty good. But yeah, it's not a substantial long-term thing. I would say, me personally, I would never buy more than a week of.
No,
MREs,
I keep a couple
whatever.
in. I keep a couple in my emergency bag that goes in my car, just because it's a lot of calories. It's very short term. The idea is when that half-hour commute turns into an 8-hour problem, I get really grumpy when I'm hungry. So I've got a solution, and it's not something that I'm going to go to just because I'm bored. It's something I have to really like. I really have to like. I have nothing. I have no other choice, and I'm going to go hungry. So that is like. That's why I keep those, but that's the only reason. Those are not like, they're not good. They don't taste good.
No,
They don't do good things for you.
I mean, we could have a debate on which one actually tastes nice and not. But I mean, even then, they're not cost effective.
Oh no,
Like
No,
they
they're
are
not.
not
They're-
cheap.
it's so MREs, they have their place, but overall they are a bad idea. Don't rely on those. I think that's the takeaway.
do
from
not.
this.
This could be a record for the longest squirrel moment I think we've ever had.
We could carry on, but I'm going to refrain.
Listen, we talked for a full hour about pants. I think we
Saran wrap, I believe, was our best one. So
I think Saran wrap was a really good. We did a whole episode on Saran wrap too. Yeah.
Like when I was in cadets, I had an IMP that was as old as I am, and the Canadian version of the MREs, you will not, out of all options to not have, if you can get the Hungarian goulash for lunch, hands down would trade. I would have a garage full of those, as well as the sausage and potatoes for breakfast. Oh, throw some salt and pepper in that thing, like that. Oh, buddy, we could talk for hours about how good that tastes.
I guess hot sauce is your friend too at that point. But
No hot sauce on neither one of those. Salt, pepper, that's it. You do not need to add anything. They actually taste good.
So one of the things I really appreciate about this list, going back to our actual topic here,
Okay.
they talk about how important it is to have heat, and like in Alaska. It says, and I quote, "Choose a generator based on your family's minimum needs during an emergency. It is important in Alaska to have emergency heat source for your family. And also, the sky is blue. Water makes things wet. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west."
And I'm trying to think of a place I'm trying to think of a place in Canada, no shit, that actually doesn't need heat in wintertime. Like everywhere, like applies to us too. Like,
Yeah. So
you know.
so if it applies here in Southern Ontario, it's even significantly more so in Alaska. But like the first point of this is never run a generator indoors. And it's been a while. It's been a few episodes since I've been on, but I'll say it again now. You don't run a generator indoors because carbon monoxide is bad. It will kill you. Run it outside. Make sure you have a battery-powered CO alarm.
So, but if you have the
choose a
CO
generator-
alarm, can you run it inside?
I mean, listen, I'm not saying you can't run a generator indoors. I'm saying if you do and you don't have adequate ventilation, it will kill you quickly and quietly.
But if your CO alarm works, it'll let you know before you die, right?
Yeah, if that being gets
Like-
annoying, you just have to rip the batteries out and gives you a headache anyway, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, that's what's giving you the headache.
okay, so it also the list also breaks down, which is nice. That they said you'd have like a main kit. They don't really go into what you go in the main kit per se, but I'm assuming everything. They also mentioned a vehicle kit versus a go kit.
Yep.
Which is good. They also don't actually tell you what to buy, like we were talking about MREs and IMPs. It just says general meal guidelines. It just says you need like X number of meals. It doesn't actually go into specifics saying oatmeal or pasta or whatever, which is kind of good too. So it makes it, I guess, more approachable from the common man perspective or whatever.
It also means that you have to take a little bit of personal responsibility for
A little ownership.
which actually I really appreciate. I genuinely appreciate that this is both not sponsored by companies that want to sell you things, and
Nope.
it requires you to put a little bit of your own effort into it. It doesn't just tell you step by step, dollar by dollar, what to do, what to spend, what to buy. It's actually really good on that.
I think that like for example, like I'll go for like a week by week, blow by blow here, but I just kind of laugh. Like week one satisfies at least two of our panelists right off the bat because it mentions a first aid kit. So Alan's happy. And then the can opener. It literally mentions a hand up your can opener. I was like, oh, wow.
100% does. I saw
Brad,
that and I kind of giggled.
Yeah, I was like, did Brad like help author this one or what's going on? But and yeah, the large tote or the trash can or whatever to put it all in. I mean, yeah, that's kind of goes. It falls under the gray man thing. It falls under the storage thing. How to inventory stuff. It works for everything, right? So yeah, I mentioned this water and food and everything else, but yeah, talk about your bare bones basics, right? Like open the can and then when you cut your finger on the lid, you got the first aid kit.
Absolutely, and some water and some water to clean it up with.
That's right. Week two also makes Alan happy because
Duct tape.
duct tape.
There's not a thing. So, fun fact: tonight I actually started the charcoal barbecue with duct tape and a match.
Yeah, there you go. And
Just took like about 4 feet of duct tape, kind of crumpled it up loosely, and then touched a match to it. Started up the charcoal perfectly.
plastic sheeting they mentioned, which of course we've mentioned in episodes talking about indoor heating. We've talked about radiation using plastic sheeting for utility knife to cut
bodies.
disposing bodies, clean rooms, so to speak,
Yep.
extra style. Which
I've
also
watched
comes with
Dexter.
with utility knife. That also comes into play when you're collecting samples off the cheek.
Duct tape. So okay. I challenge everyone to go on week 2 of this. Buy duct tape, plastic sheeting, a utility knife, a backpack, and some food all at once from the same vendor.
I will
And
send
see
you the
how far to
copy
the
of the
parking lot
receipt.
you get before the police pull you over.
I will send you a receipt tomorrow. I can easily get all that. Tomorrow.
It'd be like, what?
A
So
giant
that
box of MREs, right? Plastic sheeting, duct tape, backpack, and a knife. I can make that.
A
happen
utility
tomorrow,
knife, a gallon of water. So, and actually, that would be fun because it would be really, really different if you did that at Walmart versus Home Depot. If you did that at Home Depot, nobody would bat an eye. You're just insulating a house. You do that at Walmart, and things get really different.
Yeah, I mean, you can mention waterboarding somebody too. Maybe that might, as a joke, and
But
see what the reaction is.
so nobody will bat an eyelash because I'll go on a little side tangent because you send Walmart. Right? I went Walmart midday, right? Grab a bunch of stuff. Me and Mel, we had some time. Hey, let's go do this, go do that. We were picking up like our canned supplies, some bags of rice and everything. And, midday, 11 o'clock, we had to use the self-checkout because God forbid they would have someone that would do all this for you. So I'm standing there cursing, swearing, like scanning stuff and like throwing it in. And I'm just like, there better be a fucking employee discount and all that shit, right? So, I mean, depending on the time of day and which store you go to, nobody would bat an eyelash because you're your own cashier at this point.
Nobody would know. Yep.
Yeah. So, after all, like, half to 3/4 of a cart full, Mel's like, did we scan everything? I was like, I don't know. I didn't go through the process of, how to be a cashier and everything. So I'm just hoping I get invited to the employee party.
Dave mentioned something with the bleach and Drano, but that's coming. We're getting there.
It is.
Yeah, week 3, flashlight, so you can go dig the holes in the dark type of thing. Extra batteries for the flashlights, which is also good.
And make sure you get the same batteries for the stuff that you need. Like, it should go without saying, but again,
we were talking about 50%.
We were talking about that 50% average, right? So for whatever it is that you need batteries for, make sure you have the right size batteries. It would really suck to, get a really good deal on 400 AA batteries and you discover that all of your tools are AAA.
But with your can opener, you can just shave them down.
Just shave them down, yeah.
and don't rely on hand cranks to charge stuff up because they tend not to work. But because I think for this type of kit, you're not really trying to go long term; you're just trying to go short term. So just extra batteries is just a lot less hassle. Than
a pack of extra batteries, antibacterial soap, and a sleeping bag or pad. I am not a small person by most measures, so make sure you're buying something that's going to fit you, that you're going to like. Go to whatever it is that is your local dealer, whether it's a Mech or a Sale or a Canadian Tire. Don't be afraid to take the sleeping bag out of the thing and like out of the stuff sack and roll it out and get into it, right? Like it's
Frontier Firearms currently selling for $89, I think it is, a down sleeping bag surplus. Ooh, yeah, it's worth a gander if people want to Google that one.
And so the challenge with down is that once it gets wet, it's very difficult to dry out.
Yeah.
But besides that, yeah, it's for $89, it's really hard to go wrong with that. Even if it's something that you can only use a couple of times, and then it gets wet and it gets really uncomfortable after that. But a sleeping bag and a pad to keep you off the ground, right?
Yeah.
That's it's again little things that are really easy to forget if you don't if you're not paying attention to it.
Well, they mentioned that you don't have to go out and buy this stuff. You can always just collect it around the house. And most people have a sleeping bag of sorts. They can always improve upon it later. But if they have one handy, that's good. So,
and also just good mention, right? Like, don't be shy to go into somewhere like Alan mentioned and say, "Hey, do I fit in the sleeping bag?"
Yep.
If you don't want to spend $300 on a sleeping bag because Mountain Equipment Co-op, Sale are the only places, or Cabela's are the only places that have it. Look up online. Most of them have stats or measurements or whatever that I'm like, you could probably pick up a cheaper one, off Amazon because, they have the dimensions of like the package as well as like what the full size is. So it may not be top quality, but something that can get you out of a jam without breaking the bank for most people can be a huge lifesaver, right? Like
Absolutely.
There's been many times where like, someone in the house that is of similar age and different gender has ordered something and been like, well, it looks smaller than the picture. I'm like, yeah, but the picture won't give you reference, right? But I'm like, everywhere, somewhere, there is a measurement, right? It'll tell you it's, whether it's 100 centimeters long or 10 centimeters long, right? So if you go in somewhere where you're like, okay, this is a sleeping bag that fits me, you can look up those measurements and then you can go on Amazon at least as a temporary or save up and buy that $300 one. But if it's something you're going to use 4 times over the next 10 years, it's kind of hard to justify that. But if you can find something with similar measurements and all those things, right? That's key. Look up what works for you. Like, you don't buy shoes blank, just being like, well, looks like it's going to fit my foot, right?
Well, it's like we talked about half the people of Earth. You know, we'll look at that picture online and see a sleeping bag this big, and they'll be like, "What is this sleeping bag for ants? Like, what the hell?"
Five times bigger.
Twice as big.
Anyway,
So week 4, I thought was a really good one. A tube of toothpaste, extra toothbrush, really important. But over-the-counter medication, again, something that's often overlooked. Make sure you've got painkillers. Make sure you've got the Peptos and the cold and flu meds, right? The stuff that's going to keep you out of the hospital, right? Because if we can keep things to minor inconvenience, or we can do the symptom relief so that it goes from unbearable to I can suffer through this until I get better. That's going to keep you out of the hospital. That's going to keep you from needing outside resources. So that's a really good thing to keep on hand and make sure you don't run out of that stuff. That was another thing I did this weekend. I was in the local drugstore looking for something else, and happened to walk up the cold and flu aisle, and despite the fact that it's mostly empty, there was some daytime, some nighttime, some lozenges that were in stock, so I grabbed one of each. I don't need it right now, but I anticipate that I'm going to at some point over the next year, so I might as well stock up on it while it's available before it becomes a big problem as winter carries on.
I did the same. I picked up whiskey.
It's exactly the same thing.
Never a bad idea.
It's not
really.
the same. I'm just saying whiskey is readily, easily available in comparison to most painkillers.
Yes, there you go.
Or
Well,
medication,
especially
I
if
should say.
put a stick in your mouth and you just like bear down.
Yeah.
on it and, you know.
Yeah.
Or
A
you
hot toddy.
can take a piece of the heavy cord that you're going to buy in week 5, and you can bite down on that. Lighter and
What if
waterproof.
you're in between week 4 and week 5? What do you do?
Well, you're always in one of the two.
That's right.
Leather belt. They're all
More
kinds of
whiskey.
options. More whiskey. There you are.
Yeah, next a few shots, wait for them to pass out. You're good.
Yeah,
You can do what
exactly.
you need.
So some heavy cord, right? Some good quality rope. If you can't find 100 things to do with good heavy rope, then frankly, this isn't the place that you should be spending your time. Lighter and waterproof matches. You can buy waterproof matches, which are ridiculously expensive. You can also make your own, and I actually put a link in the show notes. I found the guy that had the biggest beard, the craziest camo, and I thought he looked like the most redneck of all the previews that I saw, and I put his link in there to or his the link to his video in there for making waterproof matches, which is basically just dipping the heads in wax and then kind of shaping it so that there's not too much wax. Couple of extra pens and notepads. I would say instead of pens, pencils, right? Because pens don't work terribly well in the cold, and the ink runs if the paper gets wet. Whereas pencil, unless you're getting it right in the rain pen and a right in the rain pen and paper, the pencil will last much better on the paper should it happen to get wet. Week 6, body wash and shampoo, roll of toilet paper, personal hygiene wipes, like wet ones, right? So those things, we did an entire episode, at least one episode on personal hygiene and what happens. Yeah. That's where dysentery and scurvy and diphtheria and all kinds of other diseases come from. So that's a really important thing to pay attention to. Don't rely on your water working, right? If you don't have any heat in your house, then expect your pipes to freeze, and if your pipes freeze, then you can't flush your toilet. So have a plan for that.
Well, I mean,
just call 311.
Yeah, exactly. For the sake of a few BZK wipes, I mean, you can also save some anger between roommates of the small room that you're probably hunkering down in if things go sideways, because you don't want to sit there and stink each other out of the place.
Well, and I mean, I keep baby wipes, right? Baby wipes do the same thing, and they're way cheaper. Again, as long as they don't freeze.
Go to Costco and buy those like Kirkland baby wipes. Yeah. Me and Mel will go hunting for a week, right? Like we'll do a spring bear hunt normally and a fall deer hunt and bear hunt. And we'll just bring like 6 packs of those. And I'm like, they're not like the cleanliest or best shower, but I'm like, especially in the spring, right? Where it's like kind of chilly in the morning, but like plus 26 in the afternoon. Just coming back and like just being able to wipe kind of like rim off you will make a huge difference on how you feel and how you sleep.
Absolutely, and yeah, it's
If you're at week 6, baby wipes will help you because it's been that long that you got to keep that shit fresh.
yep, absolutely.
Oh, Joey Antone has a question here. Is it me or is a shortage on different sized rifle cartridges? Are you talking about in this list or are you talking about in general?
Well, we haven't mentioned any rifle cartridges on this list, but just in general, yeah, good luck.
Yeah. But hey,
I think it's not just you. I also think it's a really non-specific question, but it's not just you.
Yeah. Joey and Aaron both actually, I think that's their first comment for the podcast, which is kind of cool. Aaron mentions that he has 4 backup sources of heat in the Caribous. BC.
2 is 1, 1 is none, 4 is almost enough.
Almost. All right, what's next?
Where are we? We are into week 7. Water purification system. Life straws, the champion of the universe.
Oh, come on now. He's not even here.
I know.
I mean, listen. I mean, I tell you, I just got another one. See, Sawyer.
Sawyer Mini, a Berkey whole home system, whatever it may be, right? A water purification system. It up earlier in the list, it tells you, it gives you an option of like I think it's like 16 drops of bleach to a gallon of water or something.
Yeah.
If that's your plan, just remember that bleach does lose its efficiency over time. It loses effectiveness. So make sure that you're rotating your bleach through your store. You're not just storing the same gallon of bleach.
Is that because bleach is normally white?
Sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead, Pierre.
Is that because bleach is normally white that over time it?
Oh, come on now. So, or we can refer ourselves back to Hughes's famous video where we just store a pool shock and turn it into bleach as required. But yeah, I mean, no, for the sake of the size of a Sawyer, I mean, how can you go wrong?
Oh, yeah.
It's half the size of a life straw. Just saying. It's pint sized, just like me.
You'll never.
It makes your hands look normal.
That's right.
You'll never hear her say.
You know? Yeah.
But it also week 7 also mentions baby care items. So that's another, go with those personal hygiene wipes. You can stock up on a good idea to stock up on baby wipes, cream for diaper rash, right? If you're not showering regularly, that applies for both adults and babies, and feminine products if needed. There's, for all the flack we give putting tampons in your emergency kit, right? If you're using them for fire starting, they're actually really effective. Don't plan on them as a first aid item, and that's kind of where that whole joke started in way back in the day. But I mean, they're not a good first aid item, but they're great. They're a great fire starter. So it's something that gives you
and a family harmony item too.
Yes, absolutely.
Family harmony.
Well, yeah, if somebody needs one and don't have one, it's.
Oh, okay. That's what you meant by that. I was like, is there like this weird ceremony where you like? Okay.
No, I'm just saying if you want to keep people happy, it's generally good to be well stocked in certain items. So
yeah, and I mean they would be fantastic for a random nosebleed where you're not using your gauze that would be used for something else. Yeah. Right? Like,
nosebleeds,
as a first aid item,
yes. Gunshots, no. Let's just clear that up right now.
Yeah,
they belong in your emergency kit, just not in your first aid kit.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you got a nosebleed? Okay, yeah, it's weird, but poof, you're done.
Whatever.
And like leave that in there, but yeah, like not a gunshot wound, a stab
wound. We're not talking gunshots. We're not talking deep injuries. We're talking about like superficial wounds. That's what it's designed for. It's okay. Week 8, before we go on to that, the weather radio, so battery or crank powered, or ideally both. Just make sure it's not a crank that doesn't work, like Ian's.
The one that Ian got.
Yeah.
But that being said, the one thing they don't really touch on is instead of getting a dedicated weather radio, if you have a USB charging system for your UV5R, your Baofeng, or your Bluefang, as certain YouTubers call it, they all tune up the weather radio stations. So if you have a means of communication and the weather radio built in, it's kind of nice too. So UV5Rs, I mean, they're good for technically a flashlight, a weather radio, comms, and I mean, like
actual radio. because you
And
can
actually-
switch it to FM.
Yeah, you can
switch
actually receive FM, absolutely. FM,
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
AM
actually
FM broadcast. Yeah,
that's why everybody's wondering why it's so popular with preppers. It's like, well, that's kind of why
it does a whole lot of things.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it actually does more so
And
than
they're
even the
not
average ham radio.
Crazy expensive.
No,
And they're not
they're
crazy expensive, right? They're
Nope.
fairly reasonable.
fairly reasonable.
I mean,
The batteries last forever. They're easy to charge. They're easy to come by.
We
fairly
have
intuitive
4
to
of them.
use.
So we have 4 of them. We got 4 of the regular batteries. We've bought in 2 of the adapters that put 6 AA's in it, and they probably
Yep.
last a crazy amount times longer. I'm like, and I mean, we
And then if
could
you get
probably talk
rechargeable
about-
batteries in a solar system, then you've got yourself right. You've got a
I just need
you've
the
got a
batteries. I got the
continuous
system
continuous
for it,
refreshing
right?
system.
Like,
Yep.
yeah.
Well, even
So-
because so the USB, like I have one of those power packs I made up for the solar panel there, and you can buy on AliExpress the USB powered Baofeng chargers. So like instead of
Yeah,
plugging
but
into the
we're
wall,
also talking about the same company that you're talking about, that hand crank where it doesn't
but
work.
they
Yeah.
work. They actually work though. So that's
Okay.
good.
Okay.
'Cause I did test mine here, so to speak. So
One big thing here in week 8: extra eyeglasses or contacts. Right, an extra pair of glasses. Even if they're not your prescription, if it's close, right, is better than nothing. I don't know about. Well, I wear glasses. I don't know about you guys, but I wear glasses most of the time, and like my eyes start to hurt, my head starts to ache if I'm not wearing my glasses for too long. So even if I'm not, like, it's fairly mild prescription, but even if I had, and I have 3 or 4 pairs here that are all, they're all designed for me, but even if they're not exactly right, they are better than nothing, and they will prolong your availability. It also mentions extra blankets and clothes.
yeah, pair of cheaters from the dollar store for
Yeah.
sake of a couple bucks. It's like extra glasses. Like you're one footstep away from being in a disaster zone if you step on your glasses by accident or whatever. So
Yeah.
Yep.
that's always
Or
good,
say you need a prescription upgrade every year or 2 years or whatever, keeping that spare backup that might not be perfect for you.
Yeah, but even if it was last year's
Will,
last year's prescription, it's close enough that it'll get you closer to.
you
than,
can work through it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can live with it. Yep. And then extra blankets and clothes. Like, there's no such thing as having too many blankets. They do take up a little bit of space, but worth their weight in gold. I mean, just last night we were at our night exercise, and my darling wife, who for as fantastic as she is at so many things, not great at layering to keep yourself warm. So it was just like, hey, the truck's right over there. Grab a blanket. We were standing around in a group doing our debrief after the exercise, and she was shivering. I'm like, here's a blanket. Just there's no such thing as too many blankets. With extra clothes, I would say make sure you're sizing up a little bit so that you can layer, and that's pretty much that. If you have kids that are growing like mine, you're going to be doing that rotation a little bit more frequently. But just a few extra changes of clothes, a couple extra hoodies, whatever. They're pretty cheap to come by most of the time. I would say if you're buying things specifically to put away for warmth, then go thrifting, go check out your local Goodwill or whatever, and
Goodwill for wool blankets for sure from the Goodwill, and then also go to the surplus store. And if you don't mind being a fashion nightmare, you can get the Air Force Blue or the bright orange or stuff that's like usually Gore-Tex parkas for like $15 and stuff. Because if they're not tactical OD green, it's shocking how cheap they will be. So like, I mean, for emergencies, if it's a Gore-Tex setup, yeah, you might as well do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yes.
Also, Mel mentioned on the YouTube's chat, vacuum seal things. So we have done that. We have a vacuum sealer where, we have taken items that, are kind of bulky, but I'm like, it's mostly air, where I'm like, we made our own bag and like vacuum sealed it. And I'm like, wow, this is 1/3 of the size of what it originally was.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
it's not
and like
something you're gonna
most
use
of
all
insulation
the
is
time.
air gap, right? The better the
so-
air gap, the better the insulation. So that makes really good sense.
So if it's not something you're going to use, right, you can buy like a roll of stuff so that you can make your own bag to put something in, vacuum seal it, and like if this is your stowaway stuff that you're not going to use, every once a week, like obviously don't waste vacuum seal bags for that. But if it's something that's strictly there for emergency purposes, like 100% vacuum seal it, throw it. You can put 3 bins into one if you vacuum seal, depending on what you're using.
Yep.
And everything,
Well,
and it's awesome.
Yeah, because you don't care how big it is once you open it up, but in the meantime, it's nice to have that all in one tote.
Yeah.
So yeah, suck it tight for sure.
That's what she said.
Yeah, I was waiting for it. Anyway, cooking system for week 9. So hey, go to the Coughlin section in the camping aisle and then Cabela's or whatever, and spend your $6 on your fuel tablet stove, or you can go
Yep.
from there with the MSR Pocket Rocket or something like that. I mean, anything that attaches to a 1 pound propane tank or something, they are relatively cheap. And if you already have,
Yep.
with the 1 pounders for camping use, well, then it's kind of a dual purpose thing.
And even at that point, if you're going to have it for your house products, it's almost easier to find. It's almost cheaper to find something that hooks up to a 1 pound propane tank compared to a 20 pound, and buying the adapter line that'll go from a 20 pound to a 1 pound hookup.
Yeah, the adapter lines are like $30, but worth it. Like I use it camping all the time to go from the 20 pounder to the Coleman stove. So it saves you, like I can refill the 1 pounders allegedly, but rather than going through the 1 pounders, you can just use the 20s.
And but have some 1 pounders in case you got to go. You can have 2-3 of those, which will do many meals compared to having to lug around a full 20 pounder of propane tank.
This is also a good time to talk about twig stove, right? Like I can,
the Kelly kettles and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I have
I've got a little step up twig stove. I've got a big thing of fuel pellets for it. I can also just shovel in whatever dryish wood that I can find. I mean, I can boil my little kettle of water in a couple of minutes with that.
The BioLite, I've been tinkering with that. I got one of those for a Christmas gift a couple of years ago, and I didn't realize it actually has an onboard battery as well. So yeah, you can kind of use the heat to charge the battery and then charge things later, which is kind of cool.
Mel wants one, like 100%. It's been like a year and a half we've been talking about it, and I'm like, I want to look up more into it, but also going off secondary fuel or whatever. What are they called? Little gel things. They come in a can.
Oh, like the stuff you use for like fondue and stuff. Yeah, Sterno
cans. Yeah, Sterno cans. You can get those most places for dirt cheap. They're not
you can
heavy.
make them too.
But even if you don't want to figure out how to make them, you can get them at most stores for next to nothing. That I'm like, I have literally gone bear hunting where I have one of those under a can full of molasses and brown sugar and everything. And this thing was boiling over, made a giant mess of the little like compact stove I had. I had spent like 2 hours cleaning it afterwards. But like they'll go for hours that you could make easily, warm something up, make a hot chocolate, make yourself a coffee, a tea, a little bit of heat. Probably not a crazy amount of CO2 that comes out of it. That if you're in a small area.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen them at the dollar store.
No, they actually burn. They actually burn really cleanly. You can, unless you're like contained within a tent or something, CO is not going to be an issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know Melissa's just dying to talk about it too, but yeah, for the Sterno cans, coiled up cardboard, paraffin wax, tuna can, good to go. But I mean, really, for the price you can get them at, you're better off buying them. And nowadays,
absolutely, effort versus reward there. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Dust mask. Can we talk about that for a second? If there's one thing we learned
in our order of priorities, right? You're 3 minutes without air. Yeah. Disasters, right? And disasters come in all shapes and sizes, right? If your home is damaged, then you may have to do some cleanup. It's good to keep dust out of your lungs. If wildfire is the risk, then it's good to keep smoke out of your lungs.
And
ash, right? Everything else, right? So anything you can filter out is good. There are 400 different kinds of air purifying respirator on the market. There's not one of us on this panel right now that would pass a fit test, but the more you can put between the outside and the inside.
What the fuck does that mean?
It means that it means that your beard will not allow.
I thought you meant physical fitness. Okay.
No. I'm talking about the mask fitting on your face and creating a seal.
You don't know how much Vaseline I have in this house, buddy.
I have an idea, and I still don't think you'll pass.
What Mel does to you on your spare time is your business, man. Like you just
consensual. It's all good.
No, actually, it's. I was gonna say
the
for
more
the
you
dust
can put
mask.
between the outside and yep.
Yeah, the fitness test or fitment test is one thing, but the problem is too is that get the paper dust mask, and all of a sudden if it's in your grab and go bag and it gets bent and crack, whatever, it's gonna be useless, right? Like they don't fit very well to begin with. So if you're gonna do that, like N95 or better, ideally, like something that's actually gonna be like somewhat practical and useful. The dust masks that you might get at the dollar store are completely useless. Like you might as well just be wearing like a crochet mask at that point, but.
Yeah.
But they worked for COVID. So does
I know it's the magical fairy dust that they were imbued with, but additional specialties like the inhaler that salbutamol, right? It's one of those things. So never hurts. Speaking of lungs, bucket with lid.
If you ask your doctor real nice, there are usually samples kicking around that you can get.
There you go. Bucket with lid for the emergency toilet. Well, I 100% agree with that. Make sure you get the pool noodle to go with it, so you have at least a comfortable seat.
Pool noodles, some garbage bags, and you're all set.
Yeah. Sewing kit. Well, it's for those that know how to like stitch and mend stuff.
And if you don't, there's a YouTube video for that. That's one of those really valuable skills to learn.
Yeah, we're actually in the midst of figuring out how to set up. So we got a sewing machine. I think it was Mel's aunt's, but it's like a family thing or whatever. Like, we have a sewing machine, and I'm like, I got no fucking clue how it works, but that's my goal, is to figure out.
There is a YouTube video for that. I had my grandma had a sewing machine from the 1950s, an old Singer. I learned how to use that when I was a kid. I had it for years. Unfortunately, it was destroyed in a flood, but it was. It was great. Like you could mend anything with it. It was super heavy duty.
I guarantee there's entire channels dedicated to how to run one of those.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a YouTube for that. Worth its weight in gold. Same, like you could even spin thread onto bobbins with it. Like you didn't have to buy separate bobbins. It was great. So having the right threads, having the right, that's an invaluable skill to have. Knowing how to use that machine, but failing that machine, knowing how to do it by hand. Because sometimes it's not worth getting the machine out. Sometimes you don't have power for it. It might not be worth drawing the fuel in the generator for it, but you might need to do something. So
one of the things we're not at week 12 yet.
That's right. But dental floss and a big sewing needle will keep most of your kit operational until you get to where you're going. Right. I actually sewed a backpack strap. For I don't know, I think it was 3 or 4 days into the bush. My backpack strap, the stitching tore apart, and I sewed it back up with dental floss, and it kept me going until we got home.
Yep. And worst comes to worst, it smelted minty.
Yes, and it was pleasantly minty. So there was also that.
Yeah. Week 10.
Week 10, indoor heating system, something that does not burn carbon monoxide and or is well ventilated. I really wish that there was a carbon monoxide detector kind of attached to that idea. But anytime you're burning something inside, you create the risk of CO. So as long as it's properly vented.
Technically, that's already law to have.
It's law in Ontario to have. Yeah, but if you have no power, right? So some houses, right? Most new houses since I want to say it was 2008. I think we were talking about that earlier in the group chat. Yeah. 2008, 2012. I forget exactly when it was. That was made law. That's here in Ontario. But now all houses that are being built, because they have that rule, they're being tied into the smoke detectors, which are all hardwired, which means if there's no power in the house, then your smoke detectors don't work, therefore your CO detectors don't work.
And keep in mind, like places
even with what about the ones with the 9-volt batteries?
So the ones with the 9-volt batteries will work just fine.
Yeah, they have basically battery as a backup power source. Yep. But like for example, where I live, there was no building code whatsoever until 3 years ago.
That terrifies me. I genuinely terrified by that.
Try house shopping here. Anyway, so compass and GPS. So I guess if you theoretically could use your phone for both of those if you have a smartphone, but obviously a proper compass would be ideal. But again, whether it's a GPS or your phone or whatever, extra batteries for those, or a USB charging system, or a backup battery pack, or something like that.
The good news is that a compass never needs a battery.
Mm-hmm.
a compass and a map, if you know how to use that, it is completely infallible as a as a navigation tool, right? It's always accurate. It's really hard to go awry, but you have to know how to use it.
I would just about to say that. I was like, I would not even trust the GPS, even if you've got backup batteries or whatever. Learn how to use a compass and a map.
Yep, GPS is great. Yep, but learning how to use a compass and map. I happen to have, like, within arm's reach, I've got a county map that gives me, shows every road in the county. I've also got I've got a provincial map in my in the truck, one of those just in case items. Do I need it? Generally not. I know where I'm going. I know how to get there, but
if you only have the funds for one, buy a compass and take a course on how to learn it. Get county maps of the area you live in compared to buying a handheld GPS. If you've got the funds for both, do both. But out of those two options, I would say learning how to read a map and compass for the general area where, if this happened, like if you travel for work, like I live in Ontario, I'm not going to worry about buying maps from here to, out to Vancouver Island just in case something happens. But learning how to use map compass for your general area where you're going to be in, day out, or 99.9% of your time, unless you're on vacation, and having the funds to learn how to use that efficiently, maybe not perfectly, but at least efficiently, over buying a GPS, hands down, would be my go-to.
Well, and not even regular road maps. If you're going to buy maps, buy if you can't buy topographical, get the back roads map books that are actually like the useful ones. Because major highways, you won't need to figure out how to navigate. But back roads you'll definitely like. Sunscreen. So I know it's kind of laughable with Alaska in wintertime, but I mean, I can't think of a place in North America where you can't get sunburned year round. Surprisingly enough, the worst sunburn I ever got was actually in February on a mountaintop in BC, whereas I actually had like bright red pus coming off my face because all the reflection off the snow. Sunscreen is a thing depending on the weather and where you are.
And I would add to that sunglasses. Because snow blindness sucks way more.
100%. Whistles, hopefully you get those for free at a trade show if you go to TACOM or something like that. Everybody's got whistles floating around. If not the Fox 40, I think it's $2 or $3.
Especially in universities.
Well, they're generally trying to. I was gonna make a joke, but there's just no appropriate joke for that right now. So,
since when do we care about appropriate?
Okay, fine. I just can't right now. Anyway, emergency tools for week 11. So this is where it gets fun. So the wrench, pry bar.
I would like to put a specific line in here. Go buy a FUBAR from Stanley.
I was gonna say
100%.
It is by far and away the best single tool you could buy
for emergency break-in. You need to get in somewhere.
Your house has been damaged and you need to create some space. You need to whatever. The FUBAR is worth its weight in gold. Really, again, really good, really solid list. Toys and books for the kids. Things that don't get talked enough about is how much downtime there is when your normal time is interrupted. If you don't have a couple of decks of cards and a few games kind of in your back pocket, you're going to regret that. Good books, things, you can only work so much in a day, and there are going to be times when you just have nothing to do, and you can putter, but if you don't have things to do, you're going to need to keep yourself entertained.
Well, think about it. If you're in that, the typical, I guess, or the stereotypical like evacuation center, you're in a gym with like 50 other people, and you're sitting on a cot with your kids.
You're just going to get bored.
Yeah, no, the kids are going to act up, right? So you got to something to keep them busy. So
you have to interact with like 48 other people.
Well, that's going to be torture for you, I know, but
and there's so many other people. But if you're in the middle of playing a game, you can ignore them effectively.
You're just like, shh, I'm in the middle of a game.
Yeah,
which is why I always have a flask of whiskey and a card.
Flask of whiskey and a deck of cards. People leave you alone.
But my flask of whiskey will hold a 60.
Perfect. That is a
More of a wineskin then.
yeah.
Yeah.
Darius says you can always carve a crib board. Interesting you say that. I have a crib board that my grandpa and I used to play on when I was a kid, and it's from probably the early '70s. But the pegs that we use for it, the pegs that came with it are long gone, and the pegs that we have are pegs that he and I carved, shaped, and finished ourselves when I was I don't know, probably 10 years old.
So if you eat your neighbors, you can always get a shin bone and turn that into a cribbage board or something. And
I was also just going to say that I happen to have that my darling wife bought me a crib board a couple of years ago when she was in Michigan, and it's a piece of moose antler, and it's
moose.
It definitely looks like an antler or a hip bone or a shoulder blade. I'm not sure, but
Scapula, yeah.
But it's I do have that, and it actually sits on my mantle, and it's quite a lovely piece.
All right, week 12.
Week 12, the most important one. Buy a generator if you can. If you can, right? Obviously, like not everyone has $300 or $400 kicking around or $500 kicking around, but
we
do yourself a favor. Check out Gov in Canada. I think it's govdeals.ca, and that's where all the surplus government equipment goes.
Yeah,
GC so for example,
yeah,
GC surplus. There you go. Like generators come up all the time from the military, from fire departments, whatever, right? And it's an easy way for them to get rid of them. And you might have to do a little bit of maintenance to it, but just call Gavin and he'll help you out. It's
or Pierre, but the same token,
or Pierre.
I'll get my parts from Gavin.
Yeah,
there you go.
The local Kijiji. I mean, I guarantee there's some guy with the champion generator that's probably a smaller one, like 1,000 watts or something. And he probably just started it once, couldn't get it started again, and gave up. And honestly, those are usually the best deals too. So, I mean, you don't have to pay full retail for one of those.
I will go on a small tangent here. If you have the option, never buy a champion.
If you have the option.
Yeah, if that's the only thing you can, okay, go for it. Like later on down the road, you're gonna regret it. Parts, availability, service, everything is disastrous for Champion. Almost any other generator, you'll have an easier time finding parts, getting semi sort of warranty. You buy it, it's a lemon, whatever. But 100% those Champion yellow things, like they're yellow for a reason. They're all fucking lemons. Avoid them at all costs.
Well, so okay, I've got a Champion, I've got a Honda. So the Honda I can get parts with 10 minutes down the road. No problem.
Champion is what, like 3 months?
No, actually, I had to order a starter switch for the Champion, and it came from Toronto, and it was here within about 2 weeks. But still, in an emergency, that's useless. So,
right.
No, but honestly, yeah, like the Honda is like literally right down the road. I can get parts, so it's pretty good that way.
And probably a little bit more reliable, but not even just a starter. But like, say we're getting into like you need a carb, or you need like rings or a starter, or like other than like your regular starter switch, like electrical board stuff that you could probably Mickey Mouse by yourself. I would say avoid Champion as much as you can. If that's all you can get, that's all you can afford, and you were like, you know what, you're dead set on like figuring out how to make it work, go at it. I'm not gonna say you need to take put all this on a second credit card that you didn't have before, but if you can, do try and avoid Champion generators as much as possible.
Yeah,
and I would say if you are investing in a generator, then get as many parts as you can for it. So the rings and the cords and the seals, things like that. If there's anything that's not something you can improvise a replacement for, keep a parts kit on hand, a couple of spare spark plugs, things like that.
Or steal the parts from your local Tim Hortons.
Yeah, they normally have Generacs.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Yeah, no, like I mean, yeah, the ones out here, because when the power goes out, everybody's like, "Oh, I want coffee," and like there's 800 cars at the lineup that I'm like, yeah, just go steal all their Generac parts, and you can build one that'll work for you.
For specific legal reasons, that is a joke, not a good idea.
No, that's not.
Yes.
That's not advice.
Obviously.
This is show is for entertainment purposes only. So we also don't
Please,
plan on eating our neighbors. So, but Anyway, pet supplies. Yes.
Yes.
So I have a weird question about why is that week 12 saying pet supplies leash the first thing they recommend?
A backup leash. You would already have a leash, but having a spare just in case.
I think what it is because if you have if you have to go, you have 10 minutes notice. Like remember the Hughes fire episode where he had 10 minutes or less notice, and he just threw the dog in the truck and he left. But then later on, he got to the destination I need to let the dog out for a pee, but I don't want him to sit there and bark at random people. You have a leash in there because sometimes it's not something you think about when you're rushing out the door.
But you bought rope on week 2. You can make your own.
That's true.
You can make your own, yes. But my dog is 6 pounds, and any rope that I would tie him to is too heavy for him to walk around with.
And then also the idea
you
is
should make my dogs. They'll rip the corner of your house off.
The idea is strictly so if you're in Alaska and you have to cross into Canada for whatever reason without that rabies vaccination, it creates a headache. So yeah, just the extra ID is that's what they mean by that for the dogs. And then of course food, because pet food's easier to transport around, dry food especially, than anything else. So
and bug spray, always good idea to have bug spray. I actually have some wipes that I've tried a couple of times. I got them at I want to say Cabela's, and it's a wipe instead of a spray. I used it on a couple of searches over the summer, and I found them quite effective, and they don't stink, and they don't overspray, and I find them they're not you don't tend to overuse them. I find I tend to over apply bug spray, but those were I like those. A couple of wipes will do all my exposed skin and kept the bugs off me. But bug spray, especially in Alaska, and especially in weather that's not below freezing. Yes, Darius, those are Ben's wipes. That's what I got. I think it was from. Yeah, it's an orange package. I think it was from Cabela's. I don't remember exactly where I got them, but.
Or you can just get the bottle of musk oil that's like Northern Perfume. You just kind of dab a little bit, run it through your hair.
I love fucking musk oil. Fucking love that shit. I will bathe in that. Spring bear hunt sucks.
Oh yeah,
we tend to go end of May and
Again, I don't think there's any place in Canada outside of a city that doesn't require musk oil at certain points of the year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, go for the heavy DEET stuff because it's going to save your life, and especially in the bush in the springtime. It's brutal.
Okay, guys, this takes care of the 12 weeks, so I'm just going to throw in the website that this kind of came from, which was Ready Alaska, and it's in the commentary there.
I also find it really interesting that this was published by the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, which is a division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, but specifically Military and Veterans Affairs. I found that really interesting.
Also, find it very interesting. Facebook does not like us putting that link on there. But anyways,
no, they don't care for that.
No, it's YouTube is I guess has it. That's about it. So, anything else you guys want to cover with that list?
That's a good start, right? I had a couple of things, couple of notes. Test your kit. That was my last point. It's great to have all this stuff, but if you don't know how to use it, it doesn't do you like a good.
Cool. Pierre, anything else?
Do your research. Buy in bulk as much as you can for food.
And can openers.
Compared to but if you're gonna eat it, right? Like if you're planning for having 3 weeks stuck in your house, you may not be able to have steak, bacon wrapped asparagus, caviar, and potatoes every day.
But then life's not worth living if that's the case.
I'm just saying, right? That depends how much you replace the whiskey with your water intake that day. But obviously, way before this happens, if you're capable of looking into dehydrating, canning, freeze drying, I know that's a big if because those can be whatever, but making most of these supplies, making your own MREs, IMPs, whatever you want to call them, that, shelf stable foods. As they mentioned, because it's going to take 10 weeks before you get to the food. or for your pets. But worst comes to worst, if you can keep them for a few weeks, you can probably make a pretty good stew with them.
With your pets?
Yeah, I mean, learn how to. It's a good skill to have.
Tenderize the sinew material. The sinew
Well,
fungus?
if it's you die or the dog dies, dog's gonna die, buddy.
Oh yeah.
Right? So I'm just saying, right? So keep your pets involved in all this,
Yeah.
because worst comes to worst, it will become a resource. I'm not condoning. I have a rabbit and 2 dogs in this house, and I don't ever want to make anything with them. But
If you are well prepared with all the other things, that shouldn't come to pass.
no, it shouldn't. But don't forget that, because it could happen.
Also, by the same time, don't think I'd want to eat them if I was like throwing like flea and tick medication into them too. So, or
Also true.
random other stuff. So,
Right.
anyway,
And 2 more things. If you're considering buying a generator, maybe not look at a generator that will power your whole house. At least the bare essentials, your fridge, whatever you've got, food storage, something that you can charge up battery packs or whatever. You're obviously not going to be able to do, hook up your internet, have Tickety Talk, Instagram, book faces, except for Sunday nights at 9 o'clock. Keep it for just the essentials. Keep your long-term stew forage, games, books, family activities, whether it's stuff with your kids, knitting. If you can teach, depending on most kids at past the age of 6, 7, 8, where you start comprehending, where you can teach them how to make a blanket. If they've got no TV and they've got nothing to do, they will make blankets for everybody because it keeps them going. It's a very cheap activity, but understanding how that simple concept goes can go a long way for keeping the family and everybody kind of sane. But yeah,
or you could teach them to dig tire traps for reasons.
that too. But also, actually, so we were supposed to get a really crazy storm the other day where we were like, I'm worried about the power, but Mel was on last week and she bought me as a prank joke thing because I started on the other CPP, and she bought me those weird light things that you can hook your phone up for, like people that do a bunch of videos or whatever. And I'm like, well, we have those. They're USB port. We have a bunch of battery packs. So we brought them upstairs, and I'm like, hook it up to a battery pack, and you can kind of angle the light up. And I'm like, it could be pitch black and like light up the whole house without like really affecting your night light and everything. And I was like, runs off everything. So looking up backup stuff for that, pretty good.
Cool. Podcast challenge time. Alan. Pierre, how was
Sorry.
podcast challenge? Oh,
Sorry, I was just coughing. If you're starting out, follow this guide and easily build up a solid foundation. If you're well into prepping, see what items are missing and what you can expand on.
awesome sauce. Upcoming events. We've got the Sporting Clubs of Niagara Gun Show. I didn't know where else to look right now. So December 9th, 6 to 9 p.m. at the Meriton Community Center. Link will be in the show notes. Deal of the week. Well, a large poly storage container / ammo crate is on at Princess Auto, 40% off. If you guys know what the size of the SKS ammo crates, the old wooden ones, it's kind of like a plastic copy of those. On sale for $14.88 right now, which is awesome.
Well, I know where I'm going after work tomorrow.
Yeah, so I'll throw the link in the chat there as well, because it's a really good deal. They sell the same thing at Cabela's for I think double that.
Yeah.
So you guys have any shout outs or anything?
No, I don't like it people enough to show them out.
I've got a quick shout out. Jeff, that did not make it on tonight. A little while ago, I was down in the butthole of Ontario / Canada, and he asked me to pick something up, and I guess he knew better to try and offer me saying thank you and give me something. So he convinced Brad, that lives just around the corner from where I am, to bring over a little bottle of whiskey to say thank you, because he knew I wouldn't accept it. So it's much appreciated. And thank
Awesome.
you.
Good teamwork there. Thanks to Mirko for meeting up with me today. It was nice to meet up with you. So yeah, always cool. Email and iTunes reviews.
So this one is from Dave saying, "Hey guys, what is the name of the spray you talked about on the podcast, the cotton candy stuff?" So that is a product I have thanks to my work that smells like the most delicious thing in the world, but you should not eat. It's called Corrosion Guard, and it is from M-Zone is the company. You can pretty much find it anywhere. It's not cheap, but it will pretty much unseize anything and keep lubricating anything and everything. So Corrosion Guard from M-Zone is the stuff. I'll see about putting it somewhere. I mean, I don't know where, but just listen to this and rewind it if you need spelling.
Fair enough. Denny is shouting out to Ian and Alan. Good seeing the split back.
We're still the same person. We just managed to log in with two things tonight.
Voice modulator, auto tune, all that stuff. Yeah,
we pre-recorded this and then added simple
banter
words for everybody, and yeah. That's why Eric wasn't here. He had to do all the computer stuff for it. He was tired.
Yeah, he's playing like the soundboard, and he's like playing the what do you call the drops. There you go.
Actually, everything that I've said tonight, I've said before, and this was all pieced together from the last 180 episodes.
I've seen videos about that.
Deepfakes, yep. All right, bring us home, Alan.
I think that's a great place to bring episode 186 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Please help us out and submit a review. Helps other people find us. If you want to find me directly, it's Alan, that's with one L, at prepperpodcast.ca.
We record these shows live on Facebook and YouTube. If you want an early peek at the show, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click the notification tab. That gives you an alert when we're going live. You can contact me at Off the Wall Customizing, Tickety to Talk, Discord, and this Gilded thing from the other CPP that you will find out tomorrow night, where I have more whiskey and probably more inappropriate.
We'll try harder tomorrow. You can reach Ian directly by emailing me at theislandretreat@gmail.com. And you can also find me on Canadian Patriot Podcast with Pierre occasionally on iTunes and YouTube, recording Monday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. I'm also on the Gilded app. It's the only place I'm allowed still for the OG CPP. For now. They haven't kicked me off yet. Email us if you want to invite to the Gilded app. And you can find us discussing why government waste in society has me still making lists. Anyway. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe.
And keep learning.